Our top stories: a top FBI investigator testifying on Capitol Hill, revealing deep state corruption of the highest order, intimating a Clinton cover-up, and Obama administration spy operation aimed at not only some intelligence agent and official Peter Strzok, playing an even larger role than has been understood to this point. And very much at the center of the FBI political corruption scandal remains Lisa Page and the tens of thousands of potentially explosive texts and emails. We take it all up tonight. Congressman Ron DeSantis and Chris Farrell, Chief of Judicial Watch Investigations, join us here. Also tonight, the busiest primary election. Our top story tonight: stunning revelations from FBI espionage chief Bill Priestap on Capitol Hill today. More revealed about the role of FBI agent Peter Strzok and his part in the Clinton email cover-up and spying on the Trump campaign. Fox News Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge with our report.
The FBI's espionage chief, Bill Priestap, with direct knowledge of the Clinton email and Russia investigations, testified for the first time behind closed doors for House investigators.
How's it going in there?
It's like going to the dentist.
Priestap's former number 2 FBI agent Peter Strzok was a central player in the Clinton email probe and later removed from the Russia case for anti-Trump bias. Based on testimony and documents, one Republican said Strzok appeared to be running the show.
Not only the text messages that we have, but the emails that have been produced to the Oversight and Judiciary Committees. And so while technically that may have been a Bill Priestap call, I think it was more Peter Strzok driven.
One committee Democrat said Priestap's testimony was straightforward, direct, adding he intervened once the extramarital affair between Strzok and FBI lawyer Lisa Page was known.
Late today, the closed-door testimony concluded after about 6.5 hours, with one lawmaker describing Bill Priestap's testimony as extremely cooperative, adding that based on the latest information, so intelligence testimony and other records, it now appears that FBI agent Peter Strzok played a more significant role than previously known in the Clinton email and Russia investigations, a role that goes well beyond the text messages and what they indicate, Lou.
Catherine, thank you very much. Catherine Herridge reporting. Our first guest tonight, furious over the counterintelligence powers used against an opposition party's presidential campaign. Joining us tonight is Congressman Ron DeSantis. Congressman DeSantis is a member of a number of important committees, including Oversight and Government Reform, Foreign Affairs, and the Judiciary Committee. He's also the leading Republican candidate for governor of the great state of Florida. Congressman, good to have you with us. Let's turn to what we learned today from Priestap, and to the degree that you can share that, and the committees that were in a closed-door hearing to hear his testimony. Strzok is now, has been from the very beginning, it seems, at the epicenter of this, at the center absolutely of the scandal at the FBI and the Justice Department. Now it looks like he played an even larger role than anyone imagined.
I'll tell you, Lou, there's been few people that have done so much damage to the reputation of the FBI than this guy, Peter Strzok. Now, we've been following him for a long time. Remember, He was the one that bent over backwards to try to help Hillary. He was editing Comey's statement in ways that lessened her culpability about foreign interception of her emails. He's the one that changed the language from gross negligence to extremely careless to try to get it out of the statute. And then he turns around after Hillary's exonerated and opens up a counterintelligence investigation on the Trump campaign based off the supposed conversation between Papadopoulos and Alexander Downer, which we now know, Lou, Downer did not report any emails. He just said that someone had said that there's dirt on Russia. So there wasn't even an email basis. So as thin as read as possible. And then, of course, the text messages that evince his anti-Trump bias. He wanted Hillary to be president, and he hated Donald Trump with a passion. So I think this really just underscores the problems that you and I have been talking about with this investigation, these dual investigations, for a long, long time. Well, look, I think that Hillary was the consummate insider swamp candidate. And the people who are part of the permanent political class here, obviously people who are elected, but also high bureaucratic officials, I think they're much more comfortable with Hillary. Donald Trump is coming after this. I mean, he's like a sledgehammer to the D.C. swamp. He's an outsider from the inside the Beltway mentality, and I think that they just viewed him as somebody that was going to upend the apple cart, and they didn't want that. And so maybe some of it's ideological, but I think it's much more that just Trump was an outsider that was really going to upend Washington, and I don't think they wanted that.
What is taking, if we can put that up, what is taking so long with the Inspector General's report on crooked Hillary and slippery James Comey? I hope the report is not being changed and made weaker. Your reaction?
Well, that's I think the fear is that the report gets presented to the Justice Department, who then has a period to review it, potentially suggest edits, redactions. And as we've seen, Lou, there's been a big problem with how Rosenstein and some of the folks at the FBI have handled Congress's request for documents when they redact a lot of things that have nothing to do with law enforcement sensitivity or national security. They redacted the fact that Andrew McCabe, they spent $700 on some table with taxpayer money for his office. So they're doing redactions more to protect the bureaucracy from accountability than they are to protect national security or law enforcement sensitivity. So if that is going on with this report, if they're trying to redact or change it to lessen the truth about how some of these high officials like Comey, McCabe, and Strzok behave, that's a big, big problem. If it's just a matter of being thorough, look, I wanted it yesterday. I wanted it 3 months ago. But if we get a thorough report tomorrow or Monday, and it actually leads to referrals on Comey, on these people who colored outside the lines, then I'm going to be fine with that. If we put our foot down on this, Lou, you do it because it's the right thing. But our voters would respond positively. They'd be willing to walk over hot coals to vote for Republicans in November. So we have it in our hands not only to get the truth for the American people, but to set Republicans up to have a really strong midterm election.
All it takes is integrity and guts, as you well know and as you demonstrate every day. Congressman Ron DeSantis, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks so much. Bombshell new texts from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page show there may have been more than one spy spying on the Trump campaign. Judicial Watch's Chris Farrell joins us here next. Stay with us. We're coming right back. It turns out some documents have been revealed. They've been out for a while, but for the first time, people are noticing what is actually said. Amongst them, Chris Farrell. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Now, this is going to require some at least moderately heavy lifting. And if you will follow along, this becomes revelatory when we take a look at what is happening at the FBI, what has happened at the FBI, and the efforts to subvert the candidate for President, Donald Trump, and ultimately President Donald Trump. Unredacted texts that reveal how the FBI may have initiated a number of spies into the Trump campaign as early as December of 2015. FBI investigator Peter Strzok, writing to FBI attorney Lisa Page, asked this, quote, and if you'll look at this, "You get all our Oconus lures approved?" Question mark in peculiar smiley face. The word Oconus refers to outside the continental United States. The word lures, which the FBI originally had redacted, refers to FBI recruited spies. Our next guest has first-hand experience running double agent operations while an Army counterintelligence officer. And joining us tonight is the Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch, Chris Farrell. Chris, great to have you with us.
Hey, Lou.
This is striking stuff. This sort of lays out, does it not, in very succinct form, what they were all about.
It was an intelligence operation directed against then-candidate Trump They applied all the tradecraft they possibly could, and they deliberately avoided all the regulatory requirements of the executive order and also the Department of Justice regulations by launching a double agent operation overseas, hence the term OCONUS. And in shorthand, these offensive counterintelligence operations, in plain English, that means a double agent operation. And that lure, or those lures plural, the important thing is it's plural, those are the persons that are sort of dangled out in front in the hopes that, interested parties would take a bite at them, and then, of course, the FBI would reel them in and run them against the Trump campaign. So this is, deliberate, it's thought out, it's an effort to run or launch the operation overseas so they don't bump into legal requirements. You'll note that it's an offensive counterintelligence operation, not investigation. Another important word, because a counterintelligence operation is not constrained by the same things as a legal investigation or a criminal investigation. This is very, very serious stuff.
Very serious stuff. And there was a response from Lisa Page to the, did you get all of the OCONUS lures approved? Page responded, no, it has just implicated a much bigger policy issue. I'll explain later. Might even be able to use it as a pretext for a call. As we are watching these two operate, it is pretty clear they're operating in a very select circle that they apparently seem to think, which they is centered upon certainly them, certainly on Peter Strzok. What are we to take from that?
We're taking that from very early on, back in December 2015. There's a concerted effort by agents of the FBI to apply intelligence tradecraft and intelligence operations to attack and undermine candidate Trump and now President Trump. It's indisputable. You can't go to the lengths they've gone to using the language that they have. And look, these are their own words. This is their communications back and forth. They were running an operation to undermine a candidate for President of the United States. They were seeking to have what is called undisclosed participation in a U.S. entity in the United States. These are all violations of law. This is not, a policy decision or, gee, somebody had bad judgment. This is intelligence tradecraft applied against a candidate to steer an election. There's nothing more grave when it comes to abuse of our legal and intelligence system.
And as we conclude here, what is to be done about Strzok? What is to be done by Congress about what now is before them in closed hearings, as well as in some documents of the millions that they've requested? The Congress is being stymied in its oversight role. There seems nowhere for them to go. What are the next steps, particularly as we see that this is a significant operation that was designed specifically to undercut candidate Donald Trump and ultimately President Donald Trump?
This is a level of criminality beyond the pale. Look, the president needs to rip the lid off this, as does every member of Congress. Any person involved in any sort of an oversight capacity or any, management position, whether it's the president, the attorney general, whoever has any influence whatsoever, needs to rip the lid off this and make it public. This is such a grave abuse of power and authority. It's like nothing else we've seen in our history. This makes, the Nixon-Watergate burglary look like Keystone Cop stuff. This is very grave, and the public has a right to know and should know as soon as possible all the details about this.
Chris Farrell, Judicial Watch. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Lou.
Hillary Clinton violated the Espionage Act, and perhaps the president violated the Espionage Act by using that server. Now, I was hunting for the right words to get it, but it's that simple. And once you open that door, and I believe Susan Rice is the key to the start of opening that door, then everything's going to become very transparent of how they used the intelligence community for political purposes.
Yeah, you got to.
Hillary Clinton has violated the Espionage Act. This is very serious. If you violate the Espionage Act, it's a minimum of 10 years in jail, and Secretary Clinton should be tried for that. This is big and dangerous as Watergate. It is. It is because an administration that left trap doors that was endangering the United States and our national security. Those are treasonous acts. That's why this can be as big or bigger than Watergate.
The abuses at the Obama Justice Department and FBI in front of the FISA court go to the bone of the function of the Justice Department. And the key to this, the key to the lying and the misrepresentations to the FISA court is going to be John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and the senior officials at the Justice Department. When there is a federal grand jury, in addition to the Nunes Committee investigation into the State Department, people will be forced by subpoena to give testimony as senior Department of State officials who are currently there or who have left. I think it will be demonstrated that they colluded with Clinton administration representatives and campaign officials and people like Sidney Blumenthal and Cody Shearer, who passed on completely unreliable information, which they hoped would be passed along to the FBI, and in fact it was, and that information was used fraudulently to obtain FISA warrants. This is why, Lou, the only way to get these answers, once the Nunes Committee is done, is to have a federal grand jury force all of these State Department people, CIA, DNI people, FBI, DOJ senior people, under oath in a grand jury. It's the only way we're ever going to get the full story.
And to add another twist, Lou, Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, is a witness. He should be recused from this altogether because he's going to have to testify why he signed a FISA application.
Comey and Strzok and all of those people, including senior Justice Department officials, this was a plot, a brazen plot to exonerate Hillary Clinton in the email server case, to ensure that she became president. And if by chance she lost, part of the plot was to frame Donald Trump with a false crime. And that's why the Steele dossier was used. It was designed to create a false narrative about Trump and his people and to be used ultimately against them if Hillary Clinton lost. This is why this is the single most important scandal of the last 50 years, because senior DOJ and FBI officials engaged in conduct that was designed to corrupt an American presidential election. It wasn't the Russians who corrupted the presidential election. It was the American officials at the Department of Justice and the FBI.